Sophie ran up the stairs, but the floor was slick with blood. Jacob lunged, knife swinging. Early morning, the sunlight hadn't yet reached the damp cobblestone streets of Elmridge. Sophie pedaled through a thin veil of mist, her light jacket fluttering with each turn of the bicycle's wheels. This autumn arrived colder than usual, and the town, already quiet, now carried an eerie stillness, as if all sound had been buried beneath the cold earth of memory. Elmridge wasn't a remote place. It was modern, with a bookstore, a cafe, and glowing digital billboards at night. Yet, amidst it all, an unsettling feeling lingered, as if the town knew more than it revealed. The art gallery where Sophie worked was tucked deep in a narrow alley, nearly hidden by 2 rows of abandoned buildings. Once an old library, it now had only peeling walls and a yellowed ceiling. Dusty old paintings hung silently, watching her. The hallway to the exhibition rooms was always dimly lit, day or night, with flickering fluorescent lights that seemed reluctant to stay on. Sophie didn't hate the place, but it made her uneasy. There was something off about the paintings. They seemed to change ever so slightly between one glance and the next. In her heart lingered the shadow of an unnamed obsession, the disappearance of Ethan, her twin brother, 5 years ago. One winter night, Ethan vanished without a trace. The police found nothing. No evidence, no body, just a rain-soaked jacket left at the edge of the forest. Sometimes Sophie dreamed of him. In her dreams, Ethan stood at the end of the hallway where light couldn't reach. He said nothing, only looked at her with sad eyes before turning and fading into the darkness. Ryan, Ethan's best friend, helped Sophie get this job. He worked in the town's art management board and was always kind. But his eyes, sometimes they were inexplicably cold, as if hiding an unspeakable truth. Alina, Sophie's mother, never accepted that Ethan was dead. She believed his soul was still out there, waiting to be found. Every day she went to the small church at the end of the street, lighting candles and praying. Sophie entered the gallery's darkest room. It had no windows, only a faint yellow bulb dangling from the ceiling. On the wall hung a single painting, a figure standing in a pitch-black forest, their face completely obscured by shadow. Sophie froze, her heart slowed. The figure in the painting was staring right at her. Sophie always enjoyed working alone in the old gallery. It felt peaceful, almost detached from the noise of everyday life. But that morning, while dusting the old frames, she heard a faint sound behind her. Not footsteps, but a soft whisper, like someone calling her name through a cold breeze. Sophie. She spun around. No one was there. Just the old wall, some unhung frames, and pale light spilling from a high window onto the gray wooden floor. She shivered, forcing a smile to reassure herself it was her imagination. But then the ceiling light began flickering erratically. A bulb hissed and went out. Darkness swallowed the room for a few seconds, leaving Sophie frozen. When the light returned, Jacob, the security guard, was standing right behind her. "Scared ya, huh?" he said, smirking, his eyes half teasing, half probing, probably just daydreaming. He dragged out the word daydreaming as if he knew something Sophie didn't. She swallowed her irritation, her heart still pounding. That afternoon, Sophie went to the basement storage to catalog some unclassified paintings. While sorting through dusty canvases, she found a large frame leaning against the wall. Pulling back the cloth, she froze. On the aged oil canvas was a young man with deep, hollow eyes and a crimson blood stain spreading from his left chest. "Ethan," she gasped, her trembling hand touching the frame's edge. That face, unmistakably Ethan, her ex-boyfriend who died a year ago in a mysterious accident. Ryan, the restorer, passed by, glanced at it, and shrugged. "Probably just a coincidence, people look alike," but his voice sounded forced, and he left the room faster than usual. That night, Sophie couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned until exhaustion pulled her under. In her dream, Ethan appeared, his clothes drenched as if he'd just emerged from a lake. His face pale, eyes bloodshot, he stared at her, repeating in a heavy voice, "They're still painting, they're still painting." Sophie jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. Her heart raced as she recalled Ethan's pained, pleading eyes. She couldn't take it anymore. She had to return to the storage. That night, she threw on a jacket and went to the basement. Her flashlight beam trembled as it swept over the covered paintings. A large cloth lay in the center of the room, as if waiting for her. She pulled it back. The ceiling light flickered. In the stuttering glow, a grotesque painting emerged. A woman screaming, her mouth twisted open, eyes white, hands reaching out as if trying to escape the frame. Sophie stumbled back, her heart stopping. The painting was watching her. The crescent moonlight pierced through dusty windows, illuminating the old paintings in the third-floor room Sophie now avoided at night. Her sleep became fitful, broken. Every night as she drifted off, the same warped dreams played like a distorted song. The gallery, blood-soaked paintings oozing crimson from their brushstrokes, as if the strokes themselves were breathing, blading. She woke screaming, her throat tight, her back soaked in cold sweat. One night, startled awake by a nightmare, Sophie grabbed her phone to check the time. As the camera flashed unintentionally, the screen showed a blurry reflection of the bedroom mirror behind her. But in the mirror was a figure, not her, not Elena. A boy, dark, disheveled hair, empty eyes stood there for a fleeting moment. When Sophie turned, no one was there, but the image lingered on her phone, faint but clear enough to recognize Ethan. Trembling, Sophie showed the photo to her mother the next morning. Elena froze, then quickly dismissed it. "Sweetie, it's just light or dust reflecting. You're scaring yourself." But Sophie shook her head, her voice firmer than ever. "No, Mom. Ethan, he's trying to reach me from the other side." Elena fell silent, worry deepened in her eyes. Sophie had changed since coming here, irritable, sleepless, withdrawn, then suddenly explosive. But one thing Elena couldn't deny. Sophie wasn't lying. The house grew more oppressive. Every step felt watched. Not just at night, during the day, alone, Sophie felt someone behind her, their cold breath grazing her neck. While wandering the lower gallery, Sophie found a small door hidden behind a covered easel. Its rusted lock was sturdy, untouched for years. As she tried to inspect it, Ryan appeared behind her, his voice low and cold. "Don't touch that." Sophie jumped. "What's down there?" "Just an old basement," Ryan said quickly. "Dangerous, rotten stairs, nothing for you." But his tone was too quick, too defensive. Sophie sensed something dark being hidden. Ryan grew distant. Late at night, Sophie heard footsteps pacing below, the creak of old wooden doors, but in the morning, Ryan always denied it. Probably rats, but Sophie knew those footsteps were too heavy, too deliberate, and Jacob grew stranger. One day, entering the lounge to find him, Sophie saw him hunched over, sketching in a small notebook. She approached quietly, about to call out, but what she saw stopped her cold. Jacob was drawing her, but not normal portraits. Each sketch showed Sophie with rolled back eyes, blood on her lips, her body slashed with long cuts. One even depicted her trapped in a frame, hands desperately reaching out. Sophie's heart clenched. "Jacob," she whispered. He looked up, eyes empty, caught in a forbidden act. Then he laughed, a light, dry sound. "You're prettier when confined to paper, you know. In a painting, you can't escape." That night, Sophie dreamed she was in the old gallery. But this time, every painting bore her face. Approaching a large frame, she saw herself trembling, hands pressed against glass from the inside. She was trapped, her pounding echoed, desperate. Outside stood Ethan, trying to pull the glass open, trying to free her. But the harder he tried, the tighter the glass sealed, as if held by someone else. Behind Ethan, a tall man in a gray coat, his face blurred, pulled him away. She screamed, waking in the night, sobbing. The next morning, she returned to the basement door. This time, she pressed her ear against it, chasing a vague suspicion. But from the darkness below, a voice whispered, clear and chilling, "Sophie, don't trust him." She stumbled back, heart pounding. Him, Ryan, Jacob, or something yet to reveal itself. Sophie stood frozen back against the wall. Wind whistled through the door's cracks, raising goosebumps. For the first time, she felt this place could kill her, not with a knife, not with a gun, but with silence, darkness, and doubt. From the basement, the whispers lingered. Sophie stood motionless before the basement door in the dark. This time, she didn't hesitate. After the eerie whisper the previous night, she knew she had no choice. Her phone's flashlight trembled in her hand as she inserted a key stolen from Ryan's office into the rusted lock. A heavy click echoed like opening a gate to a buried world. Inside was a creaky spiral staircase, its wood decayed, reeking of mold and dust. Each step downward sank Sophie's heart deeper into an invisible fear. The air grew colder, her flashlight flickering as if reacting to something unseen. At the bottom, she froze. A vast room unfolded, not a storage space as Ryan claimed, but a gallery, unlike any she'd seen. The walls held dozens of large paintings, portraits of real people, but painted with frenzied, violent strokes. Their faces twisted in agony, eyes rolled back, mouths gaping in silent screams, blood splattered across the canvases. Some were torn, dried blood crusted in corners. Sophie recognized some faces, people reported missing from the town years ago. She stepped back, her stomach churning. In the room's center was a painting larger than the rest, and as her flashlight hit it, her throat tightened. Ethan, her brother, his dark gray outfit, the one he wore when he vanished, recreated in terrifying detail. But the horror was his hands, nailed to the wooden frame, blood pooling from the wounds. His eyes were lifeless, yet staring straight at her. Sophie's hand shook as she stepped closer. "Ethan," she whispered. Then the flashlight flickered again. The air seemed to tear apart. For a moment, it wasn't a painting, but Ethan's ghost standing before her. His face pale, hair wet, eyes bleeding, yet faintly familiar. He didn't speak, only reached out and turned, leading her deeper into a dark hallway behind the room. Without hesitation, Sophie followed. He led her to a small, hidden room behind a false wall. It was pitch black, lit only by a dangling film projector bulb, now just decor. The walls held dozens of numbered video reels and notebooks filled with deranged art notes, not from artists but from madmen. An old video reel sat in the projector. Sophie, trembling, pressed play. The screen flickered a grainy image of Ethan, tied to a chair, blood on his forehead, panicking, mouth gagged. In the frame were Ryan and Jacob, wearing hand-painted masks, holding brushes and knives. A voice sounded from the tape, Ryan's, cold and steady. "Pain is the purest emotion. It's eternal. We don't kill them, we preserve them." Sophie lurched back, retching, but the sound alerted the house. Behind her, Ryan's voice rang out. "Well, you shouldn't have come down here, Sophie." She turned. Ryan stood there, his face no longer hiding anything, eyes cold as glass, devoid of emotion. Behind him, Jacob emerged from the shadows, holding a paint-stained hammer. You killed Ethan," Sophie said, her voice breaking. Ryan nodded, unflinching. "He found our secret, wanted to go to the police. He didn't understand. Ethan didn't understand art needs to transcend limits." Jacob laughed, a sound like tearing paper. "But you're different, you have an eye for it. You're like Ethan, but purer. You're the missing piece." Sophie backed away. Ethan's ghost appeared behind her, face bloodied, eyes desperate. "Don't let them finish you," his whisper echoed in her mind. Then the room shook violently. The paintings on the walls began to bleed, actually bleed, drops dripping from the frames onto the stone floor. The lights flickered wildly. Some paintings caught fire, flames reflecting writhing, tortured faces. A gust tore through the basement hallway, carrying aimless whispers. Sophie stumbled into a drawing table. She saw a sketch, and her blood froze. It was her, lifeless, eyes closed, her chest a blooming red flower of blood, unfinished with rough outlines. Scrawled on it, the final work, love, pain, release. Ryan advanced, holding a scalpel-sharp knife. His voice was no longer that of Ethan's old friend, but of a madman obsessed with art. "Just a little more, Sophie. Then you'll be immortal. You'll live forever on the wall." Jacob stepped forward, but then the paintings crashed down, shattering under an unseen force. A sharp glass shard flew, embedding in Jacob's neck. He screamed, blood spurting in rhythm with his pulse, then collapsed in a final wail. Ryan staggered back, horrified. The lights went out. Only the faint blue glow of Sophie's phone on the floor remained, and Ethan, his ghost now clearer than ever, blood streaming from his eyes, hand raised to shield Sophie. Sophie, the living, stood between two realities, a world of blood and ghosts. She grabbed Jacob's dropped knife. "You were Ethan's friend," she whispered, voice hardening. "But now you're just a sick lunatic." Sophie ran up the stairs, but the floor was slick with blood. Jacob lunged, knife swinging. In a split second, as he reached the top step, Sophie turned, kicking hard into his chest. A scream echoed. Jacob tumbled backward, his back cracking against the wood. A dry snap. He writhed, blood foaming at his mouth, then stilled amid the basement's eerie whispers. No time to rest, Sophie kept running, but ahead was a sealed brick wall, the exit blocked. She pounded, screamed, useless. Ethan appeared again, his bloodied eyes, his form fading in the flickering light. He looked at Sophie, nodded, then shoved a nearby easel, crashing it into the wall. Bricks shattered, dust billowed. A faint light broke through, a way out. "Thank you, Ethan," Sophie sobbed, tears mixing with dust. But as she climbed, Ryan lunged from behind, blood-soaked, face warped, knife in hand. He roared, "No one leaves, you're my final work." Sophie scrambled through the gap, but Ryan grabbed her leg. A violent tremor shook the room. Paintings crashed from the ceiling. One large frame struck Ryan, then another, and an easel collapsed, pinning him. Blood flowed from under the pile, mixing with red paint, flooding the stone floor like a final, deranged artwork. Sophie broke free, climbing to the surface. As she emerged, a small explosion sounded from the basement. Flames shot from the cracks, and the gallery erupted in fire from within, fierce and inexplicable, as if someone below had ignited it, burning what should never have existed. Sophie stood in the empty street, ash swirling in the wind. People poured out, sirens wailed in the distance. She heard nothing, just stood, eyes empty, watching the gallery burn, paintings screaming in the flames. And then Ethan appeared one last time. He stood amid the smoke, face calm, no blood, no wounds, just Ethan as he once was, her beloved brother. He smiled softly, then vanished into the smoke, leaving no trace. Sophie closed her eyes. The wind tugged her hair, she whispered, "Goodbye, Ethan." But as she turned, his familiar voice echoed in her mind, light as a breeze, but chillingly clear. "You must keep painting." Sophie's eyes widened. Her hand unconsciously clenched as if holding a brush. It was over. Or was it just beginning? Haze and cold gallery was sealed a week after the fire. Villagers gathered, buzzing like a disturbed hive. The smell of smoke lingered, and the faint scent of dried blood seeped through the ash. Police found no trace of Ryan or Jacob, only charred, blood-stained paintings, many clawed as if from within. Some were still warm when first discovered. No one could explain what happened. They blamed a gas leak, an electrical fault, negligence, but no one dared mention the paintings, those paintings that had silently terrified the town. Sophie quit school. Alina didn't push her, too exhausted to say more after everything. Sophie barely left her room, eating and sleeping in silence, and she began painting again. Her paintings started as abstract colors, then grew clearer, faces, figures, shadowy forests, the old house, and especially Ethan. Each painting seemed alive. Once, mid-stroke, Sophie glanced back. She heard no footsteps, but felt a hand lightly on her shoulder. The scent of cinnamon wafted by, and Ethan's voice echoed from far away. "Keep painting, Sophie." Alina grew worried. She felt her daughter slipping somewhere she couldn't reach. One night, while Sophie slept, Alina peeked into her room. The newest painting hung on the wall. Alina's heart seized. It was Ethan, his deep, sorrowful eyes, standing beside a woman identical to Sophie, and behind them, Alina herself, her smile warped, stretched by an unseen force.